A big show today. Harley Reid recommits to the West Coast Eagles, taking his contract to the end of 2028. We have Michael Walters on the show. The Fremantle legend talks about the great win over the Western Bulldogs and what the short-term future holds in September. Welcome to the West Sports Show. We are brought to you by Tab Touch. Got the touch? Download the Tab Touch app today. What are you really gambling with? For free and confidential support, visit gamblinghelponline.org.au. Tuesday, and as always, we welcome Craig O'Donoghue. How are you, Cod?
It's a big day, Quarters. We've got Harley Reid re-signing, and you've had a chat with Michael Walters, which will appear on this shortly. It's going to be a bloody good podcast. I'm looking forward to the chat.
I was going to say it's time to exhale. It's been a lot happening, but let's start with the big news today. A lot of lead up to this, but Harley Reid has signed a 2-year contract extension. He was already contracted for next year, so that takes him to the end of 2028. The way I look at this, that's a big endorsement for first-year coach Andrew McQualter. It's a big endorsement to his teammates, and I think it's great from Harley himself. Now, let's not forget the club used its number 1 draft pick at the end of 2023. It's a big investment in a player, so Harley's just saying to them, let's just see what the next few years bring. I'm really enjoying playing with this group of boys, and there's some light at the end of the tunnel. So let's see where the club's at in 3 years' time.
Yeah, I think this is very typical of his management group as well.
It is.
Sports management. Yeah. They've always been big on, if you get drafted early to a club, you should stay for at least another contract. And they always try to get them through to 6 years. This will be 5 years now. So that gives you the chance to settle in a state, settle within your team, grow up a little bit, understand what you are as a professional athlete, understand what you are as a person, and then you can make a really informed decision after that. And I really like this contract. I hated the idea of a 2+9.
So did I. Yeah.
I hated I wasn't as hated of an idea of 4+7 or something like that, but this is a really good deal.
That would have been an option, though. Would have been an option, right?
I don't think it was one that West Coast would have been keen on, and I think that's why it hasn't happened like that. But this deal means that Harley can get really well remunerated for his services, and he can assess the club can assess him, and both of them can look at it and go, well, he isn't the Messiah now. He's just a player now rather than having this massive, massive $24 million contract sitting there. At the end of 2 years, he might become a $3 million player quite easily. If he's playing really, really well, he can earn even more money. If he's not living up to the expectations and he's dropped off because of this contract, then suddenly he has to work harder to get a new deal. If he is, he gets rewarded. And if the club isn't playing well, he can look to leave. If the club is playing well, he can stay. It's a really smart football decision by both parties, I think.
And let's be honest, the narrative has been Willie or won't he?
Yep.
Not just at the club, outside the club. Everyone's been talking about it. I think this lifts the pressure massively.
I would agree. Yeah, it just means he can go and play footy. And I don't think there was a genuine option on the table for him to leave at the end of this year with what was available to trade in from other clubs. So clubs can now really start saying, okay, 2028, let's get our draft stocks in order to have a crack at him and get our salary cap in order to have a crack at him. And that could mean a massive thing for West Coast in 3 years' time, massive money for Harley, or it could mean, no, West Coast are prepared to throw the kitchen sink at him and say, stay because we're improving and we can give you everything that you want as well. So I think it's going to be really good for all the parties that they can all be settled and he can just go and play footy now without having to worry about all this stuff.
Do you think there's a statement at all for any prospective free agents or delisted players out there interstate who are looking across the Nullarbor and saying, I don't want to play with West Coast, 11 wins since 2022, but someone of Harley's calibre saying, I'm going to hang around for 3 more years. What sort of statement do you think that it makes to those players?
Yeah, I think it's really good in that sense because they can now go to whoever they wanted to, such as Chad Warner. If Chad Warner was out of contract at the moment, which he isn't, obviously, but they could now go to him and say, look, you're going to be playing with Harley, and imagine what Harley will be in 3 years' time. So they've got money to spend. We know that, West Coast, because all these superstars are retiring. They're giving a lot to Harley, but there's going to be plenty left in that in the bottom of that drawer for them to give to whoever they want to. And those players can now go, okay, well, if we think Harley's going to be a superstar, let's join it up with him, earn lots of money and play with one of the best players that's going to come in the next few years. So I really think this opens up a lot of options for West Coast, which they should be really happy with.
I think it's been a really pivotal week because we had Oscar Allen, no surprises there, informing the club, I want to go explore free agency. Brisbane's my club of choice. I believe that what Brisbane will eventually pay him will enable West Coast to get band one compensation. So that means they get pick 2 beyond their pick 1. They've got Hawthorn's first pick, which
it'll be in the teens,
wherever it ends up.
Mid-teens by the time all of the other ones, probably about 15 or 16.
So they're starting to build, and who knows what they can do with pick 2. But you and I both think they should go for the draft, but. You got pick 1 and 2, and whatever else comes in, you don't know. So I think they're starting to build a bit of a cachet now, and I think that getting the Oscar decision, we know what's happening now, and the Harley contract, so important.
Yeah, and this is how you rebuild a footy club. You get your number 1 pick, make sure he's a star. They've got that, and then you re-sign him into the future. You then go and get multiple first-round picks, and if it means offloading other stars to do so, that's what you do. You just get rid of them and say, let's get as many first-round picks as we can. So they've got rid of Oscar Allen now in that sense. He's the valuable player. He might be their key forward and their captain, but he's the valuable player that can get you pick 2. So you can rebuild in that way. That's the only way to rebuild that. They didn't do it with their premiership stars. They're going to be prepared to do it with Oscar now. They won't match whatever bid comes along as much as they're saying they will, because they'll get that pick 2. And then you can build and build and build. This is the way forward for them. There is absolutely no doubt about it.
And some delistings, and again, not unexpected. Jack Petrocelli, Jaden Hunt's retired. We had Callum Jamison. We had Lockie Rawlinson.
Yeah, guys who either weren't good enough, were depth players, or had just had their time. And Jaden Hunt's a really interesting one. When you look back at how West Coast tried to stay either in contention or rebuild, they went for guys who were just on the fringe of a lot of clubs, and they never really got much value out of them. If you're not going to get a big dog, you may as well go and get someone who's that has the potential to be an elite pick at some point. I don't think going and getting those mid-range players is ever really going to help you. Hunt served his purpose for them, but was never going to lift them to the next level. So now that's either got to be absolute stars or players who can teach, like those Mitch Duncan as an example who's been linked to them, or you just go straight at the draft. But don't start paying for players who are going to fill a spot and take away a spot in the team from someone who might be able to become really good one day.
So Harley's there for 3 more years and maybe more, okay? So you get a fit Elliot Yeo back on the park. Elijah Hewitt got lots of miles in his legs this year. All of a sudden you're starting to get the nucleus of a really good midfield with a lot of grunt, which would probably enable you to, as Brady Hoff flagged to me a few weeks ago, perhaps he slots back to half back and can take on those mid-small roles that he performs so well, having known that he's got some yards in the midfield as well. So it's just starting to creak a little bit, you know what I mean? They're starting to make some forward movement. Even though it's been a 1-win season, the only team to ever lose 22 in a season, if you're looking at the long term, and I'll put this one to you, is this the biggest club's biggest ever signing, do you think, given the circumstances? Clearly, it's their best news day since the 2018 grand final.
Well, it's not their biggest ever signing, because Chris Judd, when he re-signed, he took them to a flag as a Brownlow medalist, Norm Smith medalist captain.
It might be their biggest signing. We just don't know yet.
Yeah, Harley's in a different spot. He's hope for the future, whereas Chris Judd was genuine, helping you to win a premiership within a couple of years. And that was so important for them at that point. But the biggest thing about today is, I hated what Andrew McQualter said post-game, we've improved this year, when they haven't. Like, they've gone backwards in every measure that you can see. This is a sign that they can improve, as opposed to, we have improved, they haven't improved, but they can improve because now they've got Harley in the middle and they can get other players as well. And Oscar, following that decision by him after that press conference to come out and say that he was leaving as well, you can see where improvement's going to come from. But what we don't want to see from West Coast is them trying to invent improvement or invent stories. Just tell us what's happening. It's been a horrible year. You're really, really battling, but you can see signs in the kids for the future that will mean that this year was a step backwards so you can go forward.
Yeah.
That's what they need to be.
I know what you're saying. I would say the only area that you could say they've improved in is games played, and also they haven't had those 100-plus losses. I know they've had still copped some hidings, but I think Clearly, they just have not been able to play 4 quarters.
No.
And that will come. And when that comes, you'll see the incremental improvement. So, but it is a huge step forward this week.
But also, in terms of those 100-point losses, in terms of 8-goal losses, so 2 goals per quarter getting beaten by, they've had 11 8-goal losses this year. Last year, they had 10. So they've had more 8-goal losses. Their percentages dropped from 68 to 60. Their wins have dropped from 5 to 1. Their points for have dropped by more than 100 points. Their scores against have risen by 70 points, it works out to. And their clearances last year were negative 97. This year, it's negative 245.
It's hard, and it is hard to argue against those numbers. It is very hard to. Now, you're just fresh off the plane in what was a huge win for Fremantle. A lot of pressure on, and they stood up to it. While you've been at training today, let's just hear what Michael Walters had to say when I spoke to him earlier. Recently retired after 239 games and 365 goals, a 5-time leading goal kicker at the Dockers, and of course, a 2019 All-Australian. How are you, Sonny?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Now, have you got over the excitement yet of that win over the Western Bulldogs under the lid at Marvel Stadium? Where do you rate that as far as a home and away win from those you've played in and what you've seen at Freo?
Yeah, no, look, it's important. It's a great win. And, in the past we've struggled travelling interstate. But in saying that, we knew that we had a team that was quite possible of winning anywhere, anytime. And that's the sort of mantra that we had back in the day when Matt Papish was captain and carried on now. So I feel like, that win on the weekend was something that obviously it was an elimination final, essentially. It was do or die. And, it was good to go over there and get the win. The boys played unbelievable football, and you didn't realise the amount of supporters and fans that showed up. And there's no doubt that, the boys definitely felt that for sure.
How important do you reckon wins against GWS on the road, against Gold Coast on the road, which is incredibly hard to do, Collingwood at the MCG, how important were those in terms of the belief of the players that, we can travel and win?
Yeah, well, it's important. And like I said, we've been criticised in the past about the way we play games away, interstate, and when we travel. So it was good to go over there. The belief was always strong. The belief was always there. It was more so for the critics out there that didn't think we could do it. And I think that's where we've grown as a team. That's where the players have grown. And, it's a young list, but at the same time, there was a lot of belief within that group. And to go across there, like I said, against the Western Bulldogs was an extraordinary game. But not only that, it was the way we played. We played with a sense of we can do it. We believe in ourselves, and there was a sense of teammanship there as well. So it was, and those other games that you spoke about were critical as well, to not only go across interstate, but to play quality teams and beat them on their home deck. GWS, Collingwoods, those guys are superstar players in those teams, but they galvanise around each other as a group, and they're some of the best to do it throughout the AFL. So for us to go over there and do that was important for belief, but also for the critics as well.
That second quarter, was that as good a quarter as you've seen the team play for some time? I think it was 8 unanswered from the start of the second till early in the third. But were you licking your lips a bit, thinking, gee, I wish I was still playing? And just to extrapolate from that, the small forwards, was that as good as a combined performance as you've seen from the bigs and the smalls?
Yeah, definitely. And, you do get that sense of you want to be out there. Obviously, footy's been a massive part of my life, and, I was unable to finish off my career in a good note, but at the same time, I was there on the weekend over in Melbourne. I was there to support the boys and be there. Although I'm not out in the footy field, but I was always there and just enjoying it throughout the year. And it's unreal. You can see the commitment the boys have to the game plan, to the coaching staff, to each other, and to go over there, like you said, there's been a strong contribution from the talls, the smalls, and you can see within most of them, most of them have kicked over 10 goals each. Some of them kicked in the 30s, mid-20s, and then you got Josh Tracy who's in the 40s as well. So a strong contribution within the scoring, goal-scoring sector, but, it's still a long way to go as well. We still got to finish off the year with a good note. Finals are starting. be excited about it, but at the same time, keep a level head and make sure we get the job done.
Is it all about that fast ball movement, or is it a combination of everything? Can you not be too predictable?
Yeah, it's a bit of both. I mean, a lot of teams sort of know each other back to front, and they know the game style of most teams as well. A lot of teams do research. A lot of coaches show what teams are good at, what they're not so good at as well. So, a lot of teams know the way certain players and teams play. So it's hard within that sort of area. But at the same time, you don't want to be predictable, like you said. You don't want to be just kicking it long down the line or rushing kicks. You have to be more composed, because if you're not, a lot of oppositions will try and slice through that as well. So although, a lot of teams know the way we play, we also know the way they play as well. And yeah, I mean, finals footy is completely different. They're going to try something different. They're going to throw something different at you each and every week. It's how you combat that, how the leadership stands up to make sure we steady the ship, and also, try and not allow them to play the way they want to play, and try and dictate the game to make it more of our type of game as well.
It's rare you see a first-year player come in with such poise and calmness and control as we've seen from Murphy Reid this year. Talk us through your view, what your views on Murphy Reid, and also, is he the Rising Star winner?
Look, I think he's a good chance to win the Rising Star. But knowing Murphy, that's not his main goal. His main goal is to continue playing the same footy that he's been playing. Obviously, he comes in, that's a lot of God-given talent, but a lot of hard work has been put into it as well. And, the team's massive with rocking up early to each and every training session, trying to get the best out of themselves in terms of, touching the ball as much as they can, kicking the ball in each other's hands, and just improving each and every day. And that's where Murphy has sort of come to light. I mean, he does put in a lot of hard work, a lot of God-given talent, like I said, but he does put in a lot of hard work throughout the week to ensure that when it does come to game day, he's able to just let his talent shine whilst playing in a team environment. And what I like about him is just his nous around goal, his nous to be able to put his teammates in better positions if he's not scoring the goal himself. So a lot of hard work he's been putting in. But like I said, he's just a talented individual.
Yeah, it was a fair old 1-2 with Sam Switkowski at the weekend. I just feel every time Murphy gets the football, something's going to happen, something good. You played in the great era with Ross Lyon as coach. Who wins, the current team or the 2013 model?
Well, it's hard to say at the moment. Obviously, the Ross Lyon team made a grand final and played consistent finals football. And I'll get asked this question a lot, and I'm not being too biased to that team, but at the same time, the record for that team speaks for itself. You had a lot of superstars in there. A lot of players that solidified themselves in the competition, and the team within recent times. I'm talking about this year, last year. We've still got a lot of improving to do, and I feel like it's a hard question to answer, but a lot of I think the record speaks for itself in terms of what we were able to achieve back then under Ross Lyon. But, the world is their oyster now. Justin Longmuir's got a great game plan. He's got a strong communication and strong love within the group. And, it's only onwards and upwards. This is just reaching the surface with this football club. Like I said, there's still a lot of water to go under the bridge, but they're going to be very good for years to come.
Your first final in 2010, I think it was against Hawthorn. What are your memories in terms of the tempo?
Oh, it's completely different. Finals football is it's a whole new level. It's a different game style, not only for teams, but it's for the fans as well. The fans are vocal, they're loud. There's a lot on the line in terms of the week in, week out, round 1 to round 23. There's a lot on the line, and it's elimination finals for a certain group of that ladder, top of the ladder. But yeah, I think Freo are really keen to go and get the job done. We play home. I'm not sure who it's against yet, but there's no doubt that JL will be talking to the boys and explaining to them that it's another game, and that that's how we need to treat it, like it's another game. Keep playing the way we've been playing over the last couple of weeks, and things should hopefully align.
Who would you prefer to play? It's either Gold Coast or Hawthorn.
That's a tough one. It is a tough one. obviously we went over to the Gold Coast and we got on top of the Gold Coast over there with a nice little chase down tackle from Shai Bolton, but then Jai Amos finished it off, and that was a huge win. That was a great win, but it was a tough fought win as well. That's the sort of game that we needed, especially having our first final this coming week or next week. So in terms of who we play, not really sure, but I know for a fact that Gold Coast or Hawthorn are going to come over with their best foot forward and try and pip us, but our boys will be ready for every single challenge that is thrown at us. Home crowd, and the boys would no doubt be looking forward to it.
You've had some great wins this year. I reckon that win over Hawthorn over here was just about your best, and I'm not taking anything away from the win against Collingwood at the G, but it was just a high-pressure game, and at three-quarter time it looked like Hawthorn had the ascendancy, and you were just able to work your way back into it and get on top. I think that would hold you in good stead against the Hawks if it was the Hawks. Yeah,
definitely, and that game, like you said, was just intensity the entire time. 4-quarter effort, both teams played with, and the way that we combated whatever they threw at us. Like Hawthorn are a flashy, fast team, and Fremantle Dockers have been known to be slow, and that's the external noise anyway. But it was good to show the fans what we can actually do. We can play with a little bit more control, but then also when the time's right, we're able to take the game on, play fast, whatever the time was needed. So, a lot of things were shown throughout that game. It was competitive, it was tough, but I thought our boys stood up. They stood up for the challenge, and we got away with the win.
4 players named today in an extended 44-player squad for the All-Australian team, which will be announced later in the week. Luke Jackson, Caleb Sarong, Jordan Clark and Andy Brayshaw. Anyone stiff to miss out at Freo?
Well, I think early days, Josh Tracy had an unbelievable year. If he wasn't marking and kicking the goals, he was always crunching the pack and bringing it to ground. I thought that he was one that, quite possibly could have been named in the squad, but those guys that you mentioned have had breakout seasons. Jordan Clark, for instance, come across from Geelong, and he's definitely been playing his role. He didn't get the opportunity there, but he's taken the opportunity that he's got here at Fremantle, and he's running with it. He's improving each and every game. Caleb Sarong, Andy Brayshaw, they're just doing their thing. Each and every week, you know what you're going to get from them. You know how hard they work within that midfield, and they're the key drivers throughout games. And then Luke Jackson he's one of those players that can go forward, play in the ruck, but then also you can play him as a midfielder as well. So he's having an outstanding year. He just continues to just grow as a player. Each and every week he's playing his role, he's doing everything right. And he's been a real improvement for the footy club.
Just finally, how important is it that you've got the first week as the home final? And how far can this team go this September?
Yeah, it's important to get the home final. Obviously, we travel a lot throughout the year, and it is pretty taxing. Let's be honest, it is pretty taxing. But like I said, the boys' maturity levels have grown enormously, and we're ready for every challenge. Whether it's going to be an away final, no doubt we would have galvanised together and just went over there and we would have got the job done. But to have a home finals back here in Perth is extraordinary, not only for the players but for the fans that are also along the ride for the journey as well. That to give them something, and along with Nat Fyfe as well for his final year, he announced his retirement, and for him to play a home final is just unbelievable. Not only for him but for his family as well, for the fans, because he's done so much for his footy club. And just speaking on the final, it's always good when you play home finals. The crowd, the Purple Army's always galvanise us and gets us going. So it's like I said, it's not going to be easy, but at the same time, it's great that we can get a home final.
And just because you've been so informative and entertaining, one bonus question for you, Sonny: pre-finals bye or pre-grand final bye? Which one would you prefer?
No, the pre-finals bye, I reckon. Obviously, going into the grand final, you want to make sure that you're still up and going, especially if you have a good preliminary final as well. I know most teams don't want to have that little rest; they just want to keep going. So I think to make the competition quite quite even. I think having the pre-buy is always good because you want to see the best play each other and you want to see the best at their best. So to have that little buy leading into finals is good for the competition.
Thanks for your time, Sonny.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
Now, we've got one game to preview this week. Normally you and I don't do the previews, but we're going to get into it in a moment. But before we do, let's hear from our good mate David Short at Tab Touch.
Shorty's tips.
G'day, Shorty. How you going?
Very well, Quarters.
No surprises this week. Who's hot for you?
Freo are hot. They delivered in their biggest game of the season, knocking off the Doggies there at Marvel Stadium on the weekend. Their awards a spot in the finals. They're now into $12.50 to win the flag, but that was a really heartening effort from the Dockers on the weekend.
And they've got that home final, Shorty.
Very exciting. They should pack the place out and get right behind the team and Nat Fyfe.
Absolutely. And at the opposite end of the scale, the other local team as your cooler.
Yeah, the coolers across town, West Coast. It's been a year to forget for the Wooden Spooners, managing just one win for the season, percentage of a tick above 60% onwards and upwards for next year, they'll be hoping.
Now, we've only got one game this week. Of course, Cyclone Alfred, I think, was the culprit. Gold Coast Essendon on the Gold Coast. What's your hot tip?
So what we've put together is a same-game multi here, Quarters. We need Long to kick 2 or more goals, Ben King to kick 3 or more goals, and then Redmond and Noble to both get 20 or more disposals. Throw them all in together, $3.10 for that combo. So we'll put that on Wednesday night and be cheering hard.
I like it a lot. On the drift?
In that game, the Bombers. So they were given, they're given little hope of beating the Suns, given how many players they've got out. They're $11 in a 2-horse race.
What about the 4 or 5 goal loss, though, which would be very interesting in terms of who Freo plays week 1?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you want to get involved in margin betting, plenty of that there. I think if I'm a Sun, I'm probably just going to concentrate on getting the win before we worry too much about margins.
Okay, who's your player to watch?
For the finals upcoming, Quarters, this guy's been excellent right throughout his career, but the last half of this year, Brian Myers at Geelong, he's got a lot more midfield minutes, and accordingly his numbers have increased big time. He's averaging just under 25 disposals a game through that period. I think he looks set for a big September because if you look at Geelong, they're going to look at either Smith or Holmes to tag. That should allow Myers to get creative, and when he gets the ball in his hand, normally good things happen for the Cats.
Very, very, very underrated player in my opinion.
Indeed, yeah, I'm with you. Watch out for him. I think he's around $51. We've got an early Norm Smith medal market out.
Gee.
If they make the grand final, I've had a little spec in if they happen to get there. I don't think he'll be paying 51 come grand final week.
Well, you know where I'm going right now, Shorty. It's to get on Brian Myers.
Thank you, Quarters.
Good to talk to you. Talk next week.
All the best, mate.
Now, Cod, I want to set the scene before we talk about the Wednesday game between Gold Coast and Essendon because we know it's going to play a big role in shaping who flies over to Western Australia to play Fremantle week 1 of the finals. So I just want to set the scene of perhaps the way we might be leaning.
I love that song, just quietly.
It's not bad.
I'm a big fan of the Giants
That and
song,
the Giants,
and I like the
it's
Suns
hard
song
once
as
you
well.
hear them. It's hard to get them out of your head. Now, why are we so big on Gold Coast playing Fremantle here? I'll tell you my theory very quickly. Fremantle did beat Hawthorn over here. It was an impressive win. Looked like Hawthorn was going to, had the ascendancy at three-quarter time, was going to win. Fremantle managed to get it back on their terms and won that game. They also went over to Gold Coast and won on the road. It was one of their great away wins this year. I just think there's been a lot of pressure on Gold Coast. They win. I expect them to beat Essendon. The question is the margin. It's going to be their first finals game ever over here. So clearly they're the team you want to play.
Oh, absolutely. If I'm a Fremantle supporter, I'm saying I'm barracking really hard for Gold Coast against the Bombers to absolutely belt them, get out to a 50, 60-point lead, and then they can rest some of their stars, Gold Coast, and win by 35, 36. But
The equation is sort of around the 4 or 5 goal margin,
Yeah, about
isn't
30
it? Depending on
points it
what
works out to.
Essendon kicks.
Yeah, so and you'd expect, high barrack for Essendon.
Come on, can you give them any cap?
Not a hope in hell.
Okay.
Not a hope in hell. There's too many injuries. Gold Coast should be able to win this by however much they want to win it by is the reality. But here's the real reason why you want to play Gold Coast. Like on top of the fact that they've never played a final. Ever played a final. So if we remember when Fremantle played their first final against Essendon here in 2003, the week was big.
Chris Connolly wanting to cook up a storm in the kitchen with Kevin Sheedy?
Something like that. But regardless, it was such a big thing for the players. First time for the club. And it was all this hype, and they got blown off the park by a more experienced team who had played some finals. Some of those guys, a lot of guys have played in a lot of finals, but they weren't prepared for what was coming for them. And I think Gold Coast will experience a similar sort of feeling coming over here in front of a massive crowd.
Despite their coach being a very experienced finals player and a very experienced finals coach, he will be drilling this into them. But there's nothing like experiencing it yourself.
Exactly. And there'll be 58,000 people all barracking for Fremantle, all on top of the Suns. Their biggest ever crowd they've played in front of, Gold Coast, is 51,774. That was against West Coast in 2018, so the first time they'd ever played here. Their biggest crowd this season was 46,500 against West Coast, but everyone's beating West Coast at the moment, so they were always going to win that game. They went to Adelaide Oval last month in front of against the Crows, in front of 44,000 people, and lost by 10 goals. They did not handle that sort of crowd. They didn't handle the crowd against Port Adelaide the other night when Travis Boak's retiring against Ken Hickley's last game. That was just on 41,000. Their previous 4 crowds before them were 16,000, 24,000, 15,000 and 21,000. They have not seen or experienced what they're going to come into. I think that's the perfect scenario for the Dockers.
Just to keep the Fremantle supporters happy, Cod, let's just hear a little bit of heave-ho as well, because they are playing in the finals.
The other really interesting thing about this game is you can't fly direct from Gold Coast to Perth with Virgin. So Virgin are the official airline for the AFL. So when Fremantle fly, they fly with their charter planes. They can get to Gold Coast by themselves. But for the Suns, they're going to have a 1-hour bus ride from Gold Coast.
Why can't they charter a plane?
Well, maybe they could, but if they don't, and I don't think they would. My gut feels they wouldn't. I don't think that the money from the AFL is there for that. So it'll be a 1-hour bus ride from Gold Coast up to Brisbane Airport. You have to be there an hour before you fly, as we know, to check in. Then it's a 5.5-hour flight from Brisbane. You're going to spend 30 minutes or so getting your bags once you get here, and then it's another 20 minutes to the hotel. So it's an 8.5-hour journey. That's going to take it out of them before they even play. So they're thinking about it the entire time. Might be people on the plane winning photos.
You're going to get here a day early?
They would get here a day early, absolutely, so they could train the next day. But it's an 8.5-hour journey. Like, that's a bloody long way to prepare for a game of sport compared to what they would have if they were going down to play the Giants, which is 90 minutes.
Here's my conspiracy theory. They get far enough ahead of Essendon that they know they're in the finals, and then you just ease off and allow a couple of junk time goals. Just so
there's the potential for that. There's no doubt about it. I wonder what the AFL would feel.
Well, they wouldn't. How would you ever prove it?
It'll be interesting because we all know that under 39.5.
Rest a couple of players.
Yeah. Under 39.5, over 24.5. They're the sorts of numbers that are always dealt with when it comes to betting. And then you've got a line that will be in there as well. I think they'd be a bit worried if there was a clear change in the way Gold Coast played.
So you just reckon, and look, to be honest, with Gold Coast form the last couple of weeks, and I think the Port game was an extraordinary one. You're right, they did not handle that pressure at all. You could see in the last quarter, just some shocking disposals, some really undisciplined free kicks, 50-metre penalties. You could just see it eking into their game. So and Port had this whole narrative flowing through them. So they've been flirting. They can't flirt with form.
No, they can't. But
they just got to win.
Also, if I'm Damien Hardwick, right, and I'm going, do we want to play GWS or do we want to play Fremantle? I'd be thinking, do we want to win the flag? Would be my question if I'm Damien Hardwick. And if you want to win the flag, I think you want to be in Fremantle's half of the draw, because if they do beat Fremantle, then they'll end up staying in Queensland the following week if Brisbane lose to Geelong. So that gives an opportunity to stay at home for an extra week, whereas if they are in the GWS half of the draw and they beat GWS and keep on going, then they've got to travel every single week to try to win the flag, and the next game is either against Collingwood or Adelaide. So I think the only way the Suns could realistically win the flag is to handle the pressure here against Fremantle, then spend an extra week at home, potentially to play Brisbane, and then go around that path. I don't think they could do it the other way. But, I will say this. I think Fremantle have set themselves up magnificently. The way they played on the weekend, that second quarter, is one of their best ever quarters of footy that they will ever play.
As a proud major sponsor of the Fremantle Football Club, Woodside has accepted the challenge of supporting local footy at all levels, from grassroots to greatness, so it can thrive throughout WA. Woodside, Australia's leading energy company. Cod, it was the best quarter of football I've seen them play for some time. fast ball movement. Now, I'm not saying you play fast all the time because you're not going to kick it long down the line, and I mean you're too predictable. So they still need to revert at times but their best footy this year has clearly been when they've moved the ball quickly.
They did the same thing against the Bulldogs earlier this year. They were a bit slower in the first quarter, then second quarter they went bang and just took the game apart, and it was all over. And against Collingwood, they were quite slow ball movement as well. And then in the final quarter, they went bang and took the game over there. And that was an unbelievable quarter of footy. So what I like about the way Justin Longmuir's got them playing is they have got gears they can go to.
Well, you need gears. Brisbane's got gears.
Yeah. So and it's almost like if the opposition doesn't know when you're going to flick the switch and the message comes through, right, this quarter we're going, then you can do it like that and shock them and get a jump and do that sort of thing. And I think that's the way they're going to be able to play it with that speed, because they aren't a full ball movement, speedy team all the way through the match. That's not what they're built to be. But they do have a back line that can hold up under pressure,
which they did in the first quarter. Yeah, absolutely.
And like they did against Collingwood. And then you can say, okay, now we've got the game back on our own terms. Now we can go. And I think that's a real positive for them.
Great job by both Alex Pearce and Brennan Cox too in the last line of defence.
You know what else I liked about the weekend? The rooms didn't feel like they just made finals.
Okay.
It was a weird feeling. I'm standing there going, okay, what are they going to be like
for
when they walk back
example,
in?
after the Collingwood win, it did feel a bit that way.
That was euphoria. We've beaten Collingwood at the MCG. It was massive. The crowd in the room was going nuts. There were high fives, people jumping all over each other.
Which actually, in hindsight, mightn't be that big an effort. But given their form,
it was a big effort at the time, though. Yeah, whereas this time they walked in, it was very, very calm. It was like, job done. We're in the finals now, right? But it wasn't, we've just done the most amazing thing of all time. They were really, really settled. And they sang the song, they went in and did their team meeting, and then they just occasionally chatted to friends and stuff, but it wasn't the same euphoria of that Collingwood game. It was like they've got bigger fish to fry. And I thought that was a really interesting thing from my perspective, that they weren't over-celebrating.
You know what I really liked at the weekend, apart from all the aforementioned, is their forward line. That was probably the most complete performance I've seen from their forward line. From the talls, who all shared, to the mediums. They all played their role. Frederick played his role at times, kicked a couple of important goals, just to thwart some momentum. But I thought Switkowski, up until he was injured.
Murphy Reid?
Murphy Reid. Murphy Reid. If you don't want to... we've been debating the Rising Star for weeks, and but that was a bit of an exclamation mark, the old 1-2 goal with Switkowski. Great goal.
Yeah, and you have to win that award, don't you? You can't sit back and hope people vote
Nothing
for you.
like round 24.
You must demand people pick you. That's the reality of it. It's a popularity award based on who do you think is the best player. Well, Dan Curtin fell back. Levi Ashcroft's been really consistent, and Murphy Reid went, I'm putting my hand up and saying, watch this. And that's exactly what he did. And he just said, I am the rising star. I'll do something special in a big game. I'll have the award, thanks.
The AFLW update is brought to you by Woodside Energy, a proud major partner of the Fremantle Dockers, supporting local footy from grassroots to greatness. COD, great opening round for the two AFLW teams, but back down to earth.
Horror weekend for the Dockers from an AFLW perspective. They went into that game against Brisbane knowing the Lions have been a benchmark team for this entire competition, the 10 years. And they were hoping, having not played them for a while, that they would be able to go in and say, we can match it with the best and the club that's been doing it for ages. And they got blown off the park and lost by 70 points. And now they've got the other team this
North
week.
Melbourne.
North Melbourne. They're going to have doubts running through their mind like crazy. And you don't want those doubts at this time of year. You want to, even if you don't win, you want to be in the game the entire time. And they just weren't competitive. So it's a concern for them now because they have to find a way to recover and then beat North or just stay in the game against North. And if you don't win, you're 1-2. If you do win, then you're like, okay, it's all good. Last week was an aberration, but it's really tough when you've got that sort of a draw and you don't live up to your own expectations.
Brisbane still seems like the team to beat. And West Coast, a good, solid opening round win over Gold Coast, who were absolutely poleaxed at the weekend. Lost to Essendon, last gasp loss, but disappointing as well.
The positive from that, from a West Coast perspective, is they've travelled away and they've stayed in the game for the entire time. So they
could be 2-zip.
They could be 2-zip, yeah. And they didn't go away and get blown off the park. Whereas there were games last year when they went away and it was like, they didn't get on the plane. Like the men's team have had troubles with it. So this time they were in the game and they'll stay in Melbourne all week as well, which is really interesting. So they're staying over there ahead of this week's game. So I'm seeing signs from Daisy Pearce that she's getting this team to really understand what she wants and believe in themselves. And if they can do that, then it can change a lot of things. You know what was great about W on the weekend? Zippy Fish.
Well, I was just going to introduce that by my absolute favourite name in the AFLW.
It's a great name, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, it is.
It's just a cracking name. Like, if you want to name your kids something, name it something that means they can be a superstar. Zippy Fish.
She's going to be a superstar.
So 27 disposals after 26 the previous week. Everyone talked about her as the number 1 draft pick last year, and there are a few knocks on her attitude and a few other elements of her game, but leading into the draft.
Is that just not a bit of confidence,
the
though?
Swans went, we'll take her,
Yeah.
and look at what she absolutely did. But the other thing on the weekend from the AFLW perspective, like, what do we want to see in footy? What makes you, in any game, whether you're going down and watch suburban footy, the Waffle, AFL, AFLW, what do you want to see?
I want to see big marks and goals.
Chloe Malloy kicked 7. And Jasmine Garner, 31 possessions and 6 goals in a shortened game of footy is what AFLW is. That's unbelievable. That was before the Freo game. So I was at Marvel Stadium and it was on the telly at the same time as the Judy West game was on. And people were looking at it going, she's got another. Oh my God, she's got another. She's got another. It was one of those games where you had to keep tuning in because she made you watch the game by herself. And that's what the game craves. And then Toby Green went and did his thing and everyone, oh, Toby's over there as well. The way that the AFLW is creating some stars, I like. We talked last week about the rule of more holding the ball free kicks rather than more stoppages. Feels like it's opening the game up. So we're going to see more of these, hopefully, and less of the low-scoring matches, which is great for the game.
A couple of things that jumped out at me the weekend. It was a pretty good game between Brisbane and Hawthorn. I just thought Brisbane were a bit of a class above, and I know there was a controversial free kick late and one not paid late, but felt more like a 20-point loss. It just felt like Brisbane had, as I said earlier, the gears that Hawthorn didn't have. I think Hawthorn's 2 really good midfielders short of challenging. So Will Day will be one of those, and they'll go to market to see who else they can get in there. Brisbane, let's be honest, if they had a kick straight early, Hawthorn would have been in a lot of trouble early. So GWS, you mentioned Toby Green. That was a magnificent performance. Probably saw enough from Sydney, albeit it was West Coast. Good game for a half. Just a really disappointing finish.
But an irrelevant game, wasn't it?
It was an irrelevant game, but it just, I think Sydney will be in the mix for the 8 next year. That's what it told me. The one team I want to just quickly mention is Geelong. Now, yes, it's been a soft draw, but they are so under the radar. No one's talking them up.
No,
they're
not.
just about the team to beat.
Yeah, and I was at that game against the Tigers, and first half, that was just powerful footy. And then they sort of went, we're done. We're just not going to get hurt. We're just going to relax for the second half and just coast to the line, and we've done what we needed to do. We've got our work in early, and now let's get ready for finals. They've got talent across every line. They are extremely dangerous.
Do you give Collingwood any chance? Now, they just got over the line against Melbourne, but they've somehow managed to get themselves in the top 4. Well, it's because of their great early work earlier in the season. Adelaide just seems a bit vulnerable at home week 1.
So Adelaide got so much going on off the field.
Rankin's
gone.
Yeah,
with Rankin
actually, I don't
mind
mind sending him away. I think it's pretty smart by Adelaide. Now, people will look at it and say, oh, he's been rewarded, he got off lightly. What else are you going to do? He's going to be hounded wherever he is, so you may as well send him overseas for a short gap.
The fact that he's going to a training facility overseas
EPL
helps.
connections.
Yeah, so I wasn't aware of that initially when he jumped on the plane. I thought, oh, that's not a good look. But if you're going to use an elite training facility, that can allow him to train and be out of the spotlight and not be a distraction to their finals campaign. I think Collingwood can actually go a fair way from here, even though they've been bad in the second half of the year compared to their first half.
But it's finals time in your top 4.
Their top 4. So they get the 2-week break now to refresh, which is what an older team needs. They're experienced up against an Adelaide team that aren't experienced. It's a bit like what we see with Fremantle versus Gold Coast. There's some anger. There's some angst amongst the teams. Adelaide are missing their best team.
Amongst the teams. Well, amongst the fans there is.
Yeah.
Extra security. I'm genuinely concerned about this game off the field.
So I think if the Pies win this game, they then get another week off and they're set up to
preliminary final at home at the MCG.
Yeah, and older players have another week off. So, yeah.
I'm not sure if they can win it, but I certainly think they can go deep, and I think this is a real test for Adelaide for the very reasons you mentioned. Thirsty Camel mailbag time, COD. This week's special, Khan Super Dry Stubbies. Camel Club member price is $53.99 a carton. Join up in-store or online today. Every week we're giving away a $50 digital voucher. Thanks to Thirsty Camel. Get your questions into TheWestSport at wanews.com.au. Leave your mobile number at the bottom of your email as we'll send you the voucher if you are a weekly winner. God, this one from Germain. 2020 to 2023, the media and so-called experts claim West Coast needed to move on from the injured and older stars to rebuild. 2024-2025, the media and so-called experts are bagging West Coast for moving on from the injured and older stars to rebuild. Well, that's a bit of a statement more than a question. I don't agree with that. I don't think we have been bagging the club for moving on.
No, I think they've had to make the hard calls to get the young players in and get the draft picks. I think what the move you have to make at the right time is deciding when you are actually out of contention and when those players are still valuable enough for you to get picks so you can get younger players in.
Hard for some clubs, though, because it's like the child with the security blanket. You just, have we got one more swing in this?
And you never do have one more swing.
Hawthorn did it and failed. West Coast did it and failed. Mate, it's rarely that you do. Geelong's probably been the most successful at, but did they ever bottom out? No.
But Chris got rid of Stevie Johnson and Jimmy Bartell and Paul Chapman.
Well,
and these
ended
these
their
guys.
careers, yeah.
And ended their careers when they all wanted to go on, and a lot of those went and played more years elsewhere afterwards. But they weren't that player. They made the right call at the right time, which allowed them to use that money to go and get other stars. So, making the call at that time is so important and getting it right. West Coast got it wrong, and now they're having to find a way to fix it up. So I think what they're doing now, they'll allow Australian to go to Brisbane. That's the right thing to do. And if they should allow Liam Ryan to go to St Kilda as well and get whatever pick they can in the early second round and get as many young guys in as you can right now before Tassie come in.
This question I'll phrase to you, mate. Hi, guys. Who would get the coaches' votes for the Fremantle game? So the coaches' votes won't come out till later in the week because we've still got a game to play. I feel it would be players that don't normally get votes, such as Cox, who held Norton, Pearce, great job on Darcy, Banfield, good in defence, Reid with his 19 possessions and running goal, or Erasmus with 20 and a goal. I'd like to hear your thoughts.
The toughest game to vote from for the entire year. All the media were sitting around after the game going, who have you put in your best? And everyone had a different player.
I think Alex Pearce was a walk-up star.
It was outstanding, wasn't he? But everyone's like, was he best on ground? Not really sure. Maybe Sarong was. Or maybe Bontempelli had a massive game. And you look around the teams and no one really had a breakout game. They were just so damn even, Fremantle. They would have had 10 players you could have put in their best. And so I'll be curious as well to see who they rated as the best player. I think Pearce's job on Darcy was massive, but Tracy down the other end just inspired them. He was unbelievable. And as we said, Sarong, poor first quarter, then went nuts in the second quarter. So there's so many players
you throw Bontempelli in there somewhere.
Yeah.
I'm not giving him the 5, but you throw him in there. Just got so much of it and tried to put the team on his back in the last quarter as well.
Who you or I or any of the listeners could put as best could easily get one vote from the coaches in a 5-4-3-2-1. That's how even it was.
It's a great question. Great question. Neil from Paisley, Scotland. God, great to hear the story about Mayo's curse on last week's show. My dad was born in County Mayo in 1951, the year the curse started, and has suffered every year as it attempts to win the Ireland Football Championship. I'm a Freo fan from Paisley, Scotland. Sunday Freo finally clicked. My heart rate was through the roof, but every player stood up on the big occasion. The confidence gained from such a performance is immeasurable. Now it turns dockery no more. Thanks so much, Neil. I hope the weather is treating you well in Scotland.
My in-laws are from Scotland. They're from Pennycook. So I don't know where that is compared to Paisley, but it's not. Let's face it, it's not a big place. Got very, very fond of the Scots. We got a lot of relatives over there from my wife's side of the family. So hopefully everyone in Scotland is listening to the West Sport
Had a
show.
lovely couple of days in Scotland. Went around Christmas time in the early 2000s. Stayed in Inverness. I'll never forget. We went through a national park trying to find a wild deer, and we were driving along in a hire car. And there's another friend in front with a hire car, and the first thing this deer runs out from nowhere and hits the front fender of the car I'm driving, and I swear you could see the eye of the deer. Anyway, it's a happy ending, Cod. It actually sort of tumbled, got to its feet, ran off into the wild. But the funny thing was the guy in front of me, we got out of our cars, he looked at me and he said, mate, We've spent the last 2 hours trying to find a deer. The first one we see, we hit.
Of course.
Yeah.
And it's funny with the Scots. Like, so, as I said, we've got family over there. My wife's Auntie Margaret and Uncle Alec come over all the time. Whenever they come in, I'm always saying, "How you going?" Yapping away too fast, as I tend to be, talking in jargon, as I tend to be. And Uncle Alec always turns to everyone and goes, "I've got no idea what he just said."
And you wouldn't have any idea what
I've got no idea what half of them have said.
Christmas at Drumnadrocket, which is right near Loch Ness. Magnificent spot. If you ever get the chance, go to Drumnadrocket. Hi, lads. The pod is flying. Love it. Dr. Handsome here. I remember this guy, a.k.a. Mark, your resident footy genius. So Goody's been given the boot, and straight away everyone's banging on about Buckley and the usual experienced coach merry-go-round. But let's be real. Apart from Moldhouse at the Pies and Matthews at Brizzy, recycled coaches have been absolute spuds. AFL moves quicker than an umpire running to the score review. Way faster than NRL or rugby. Surely clubs have twigged by now that assistants with fresh ideas are the way to go. Keen to hear your call on the next coach in waiting. My Smoky, Scott Selwood. Yep, you heard it here first, lads. Bookmark it. Keep up the great yarns. Much love, the Doc.
So I think he's right that there hasn't been a lot of success from former coaches going back into the system, but I do think that the coaching pathway, the depth that's available to them at the moment has dropped off dramatically. I think there's been a lot of players or former coaches who have left the industry as assistant coaches because of the change in the salaries, the soft cap.
Yeah, to the assistants.
So they've gone and done other things. There's been a lot of superstars who have chosen to go to the media or do other things rather than get into coaching. I think that's impacted on the depth of assistant coaching in general. So I think it's harder now for the coaches to come through and be successful straight away. So when you look at who's available as an assistant coach at the moment, I think Nathan Buckley's experience for Melbourne specifically.
Where Melbourne's at, you feel like they need a bit of experience.
They might be able to spike. They were in danger of plummeting right down the ladder as well. They're in that really difficult zone, but if they can get a couple of players in there, maybe they'll be able to spike, and that's what Nathan Buckley could do. I would worry about bringing in an untried coach when you at the moment at
really
that club
difficult
specifically.
period.
Yeah. Whereas West Coast, I think we're in the perfect position to go for a rebuilding coach and a new coach. I think Melbourne is stuck in the middle where they don't want to end up stuffing up the next 1 or 2 years with someone who's learning his way, because it's going to be bloody hard for a new coach to come into that environment at the moment.
G'day, gents. Mitch from Kinross. Who does Murphy Reid remind you of? Watching him on Sunday, he was unreal, and the fact he wears number 16 is fitting given how he finds space and is so calm under pressure, much like David Mundy was. Every time he went near the footy, they looked like scoring, giving us supporters a heap of confidence when he got the footy. Is it crazy to be drawing similarities to Mundy and even Scott Pendlebury, given he has only played 23 games? Bright future ahead, the best Reid in WA. Quarters, are you hoping the Suns win by 30 plus so you don't have to play Freo at Optus? P.S. During the first quarter, I was booking my tickets to Bali. That's from Mitch. Thanks, Mitch. I don't know who I really want to play. Oh, I'm a Hawthorn supporter, of course. You hope you're going to be able to watch him. So I hope they come over here and play Freo. Yeah. I don't really know.
No, it's hard. And in terms of the other question around who does he remind you of, like Jordan Clark said it earlier on in the year that he reminds him of Pendlebury, and which is a great comparison. He doesn't remind me so much of Mundy. Mundy's a different sort of player, being the graceful sort of gazelle, sort of the way he just moves across the ground, whereas Reid's shorter and moves quicker.
There is a lot of grace about the way he moves, and he has time and space. He has that commodity that a lot of players don't have,
and that's the Pendlebury element to me. There's a bit of Darren Buick about him with the way he moves as a former Essendon player who I sort of can liken him to, but he doesn't have the pace of a Darren Buick. So he is really unique in the way that he moves, because he's a midfielder who's learnt to play forward, and he's a short midfielder.
And he will be going into the midfield at some stage.
Yeah, but he's got absolute class about him, and it's tough.
One touch player, always makes good decisions. When he gets the footy, it's always accurate. Very dangerous around goals, but makes other players around him better, I reckon.
Yep.
Who
you might be able to draw a comparison? That's Stevie J. Just not an athlete, but put a footy in his hands and you go, where did you learn to do that?
I'm tipping that you'll never hear from Murphy Reid Where'd you get the tickets? How much they cost you? You know, for the best, you've got the front row seat and the best show in the country. That's what Stevie J used to say to his opponents.
Yeah, that was Stevie J. But yeah, they are similar in that.
I love
just
that.
really, really good footballer with ball in hand who can do some really nice things. So his height makes him hard to compare to people, but he's really classy.
Last one for you, Cod. I'm sorry, but it is an email from our regular contributor, Andrew. Hey, Quarters and Cod. For 21 seasons in a row now, Essendon won't play finals. As a tribute, please encourage your podcast audience to tie down their windsocks. It's a coming-of-age achievement. Sorry, mate. Had to get it in.
Yeah, well, that's a classic example of a club that got it wrong at different points. If you get it wrong at the wrong time and you think either chase something when you're not ready or stuff up your list like they have at different points with trades or drafts, or if you do something wrong off the field, you can get yourself into strife. And that's exactly what
Didn't have
happened.
any luck this year, though. You've had a shocking injury.
Yeah, this year's actually what Essendon needs, but because it stayed down the bottom of the ladder after having a decent start to the year, then you can get your draft picks in and go from there. But Essendon's doing it the way they needed to have done it 10 years ago, which is build from the bottom up.
You have been listening to the West Sports Show. We have been brought to you by Tab Touch. Got the touch? Download the Tab Touch app today. What are you really gambling with? For free and confidential support, visit gamblinghelponline.org.au. Remember, you can watch or listen to this podcast on YouTube Music. Leave us a rating and a review, and don't forget to follow this podcast so you don't miss an episode. Cod, we can exhale.
And we'll be back next week when finals will be on the doorstep.